Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Waggle, your daily fantasy golf preview show here on RotoCurve. My name is Geoff Ulrich, also go by Wave Goodbye on most major sites and can be followed as at the Fantasy Grind on Twitter. And I'm your host, and welcome back. Let's talk some golf. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about last week first of all. It was kind of an interesting week. Jason Kokrak and Adam Scott, a couple major value plays that kind of went down the tubes. I wasn't too upset about it, to be honest, just because, those two guys were both good plays from a research standpoint. So it's one of those things that, even though you may have used them, there's not really a whole lot you can do in situations like that. Both of those guys look like great value plays last week. Neither of them really turned out, so there's not much you can do. But that was just the way it went last week. It was kind of a strange week. A few big value plays missing, and some guys sort of overperforming. And then you had Rory McIlroy kind of decimating the field as well. So it's not going to happen like that a lot. It's not usual that a player is going to beat the field by like 7 strokes and be such a huge play, but Rory McIlroy is going to do that a couple times every year. So that was definitely one of them. We'll have to see if he does it at the U.S. Open. He's actually not playing in America until the U.S. Open, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm really interested to see what Rory's price at the U.S. Open is going to be for daily fantasy. I think it's going to be huge and possibly a little bit too big to play, but we'll see about that when we get there. This week we're back in Texas for the Crowne Plaza Invitational, obviously. Just before we get into it, I'm just going to mention a few things. Obviously you can always follow me on Twitter and post questions there. Feel free to. I love answering questions on Twitter. It's at the Fantasy Grind. But also make sure you check out the forums on RotoCurve. There's a lot of good fantasy advice, not just for golf, but I usually try and get a thread started there. There's RotoCurve points which you can collect just by posting on the forums at RotoCurve, which is great. Feel free to just throw a question out there, start a topic, or post a question in the weekly golf topic that I usually get started there too. It's a great place sort of to share ideas and stuff, or just share your sweat as the week goes on. So definitely make sure you check out the forums, and also feel free to shoot me a message on Twitter. I like giving sort of advice and ideas. Obviously, I'm not always right. No one is, but I definitely don't mind answering questions. So yeah, let's get into it though. Let's talk about this week, the Crowne Plaza Invitational. It's a lot different. It's a lot different than last week. The Invitational events are only about 122 people field, so it's reduced from an average PGA field, which is usually around 145 to 150 people. So basically what that means is everyone in the field this week is going to have a little bit better chance of making the cut. So you can maybe be a little bit more, daring, or a little bit more, take a few more gambles this week, because there's just fewer people in the field, which means, you're going to have a better chance of getting 6 of 6 players through. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that there isn't a ton of high-end talent here. So Jordan Spieth's in the field, Jimmy Walker's in the field, and Adam Scott's in the field. But after that, there's a lot of golfers that are good, but not, great. There's a lot of sort of average golfers, and it's a decent field, but it's sort of, a lot of parity this week is sort of the name of the game. I'm expecting a very tight leaderboard. And I remember this event from last year because I believe at the cut line, the difference between first place and the cut was only about like 8 strokes. So basically you just had, 100 golfers sort of bunched up. And, I think Adam Scott made the cut on the number and then shot 82 on Saturday and ended up winning the event. So that gives you a type of idea what type of event this is. Expect a really tight leaderboard throughout. There's probably going to be some good golfers that might maybe just get squeezed out of the cut this week. So don't be shocked if that happens. It's probably going to happen, unfortunately. We're just going to try and make the best picks we can and hope for the best, obviously, like you do every week. You obviously can't control everything, so you just make the best plays you can. So let's talk course. The Colonial, it's definitely one of the older courses on tour, and this event is definitely one of the older events on tour as well. Lots of history. Colonial's par 70, plays 7,200 yards. It's not what I'd call super short, but it's not long either. So it generally favors accuracy over power. That's definitely the name of the game this week. There's some challenging holes, though. There's a 630-yard par 5, and there's lots of sort of longer, challenging par 4s as well, and a lot of tight fairways this week. Accuracy is a premium. There's small greens and there's small fairways, essentially. So I like to kind of term these courses as target golf courses. Power just isn't that big a deal this week. It's just not going to get you kind of where you want to go as a golfer. You're going to have to be accurate. And that doesn't mean that the guys who hit it long can't play well here, because they're going to get a chance to sort of club down a bit too. So maybe instead of using driver, use 3-wood more. But it does mean you have to be accurate. And that's kind of the name of the game this week. Some stats I'm looking at. Definitely going to be looking at par 4 scoring this week. I think with the par 4s being sort of as challenging as they are, I think that's a good stat to sort of start your week. You definitely want someone who's strong on the par 4s. Another big stat I'm looking at is proximity to the hole. As I just mentioned, small greens, small fairways. You have to be accurate with your iron shots here. A lot of good, accurate iron players have done well here in the past. A guy like Boo Weekley springs to mind immediately. Very accurate iron player when he's on. Not shocked he's had success here. So proximity to the hole, definitely a stat to take in mind this week. Another stat, bunker play, sand save percentage. A lot of sand on this course and a lot of strategically placed sand. And I think the players are, at some point going to have to deal with that. So, no matter how accurate they are. So a lot of good bunker players in the past have done well here. I kind of noticed that when I was doing my research. So, I'm not using it as like the be-all end-all stat this year, but, I definitely am kind of taking a look with some players. And if they have good sand stats, that's definitely a good check mark for them this week. So lastly, tee to green, with Adam Scott winning here last year, very strong tee to green player. I think that's another stat that's just generally good to use in many weeks, strokes gained tee to green. So another stat I am definitely taking sort of into account this week. So last thing, yeah, a lot of experienced players have done well here. And it kind of plays out. Certain courses just sort of lend themselves to certain types of players doing well. And this week, it's really a case of experience trumps sort of youthful enthusiasm. If you look at the last sort of the past winners of this event and players who have done well consistently here, it's a list of players who have a lot of experience on tour. A list of guys in their 30s and 40s, guys like Steve Stricker, David Toms, Zach Johnson. These are all guys who've played on tour for numerous years and have played this course a lot too. So I'm definitely giving extra weight to experienced players this year. The last time a player won here on their first go, sort of their first visit to the course, was Sergio Garcia back in 2001. So that gives you kind of a good idea of how big a factor experience is here. So really make sure you factor that into kind of your decision making this week. So that's enough of me sort of babbling. Let's get into it. Let's look at those salaries and go over who we think might be good plays this week. So we start up at the top. I'm not surprised to see Jordan Spieth priced very expensive. It's almost the same case as Rory was last week. Jordan Spieth's the top dog. He sort of deserves to be at this point, after his Masters performance. I'm not personally in love with him this week, just at that salary. I think he's essentially, you're going to need a Rory-like performance from Jordan Spieth this week. And I don't think that this golf course lends itself to that type of performance. I don't think you're going to see a player win by 5 strokes this week. So I don't really love Jordan Spieth's salary this week. I do think the course fits him fairly well. He can be a little bit inaccurate off the tee at times, so that's not a huge plus. But at the same time, he's got the great short game, the great wedge game to make up for it. So, I'll might make a few GPP lineups with Jordan Spieth, but at that price, I can kind of pass. I just don't think you're going to see a dominating performance, and that's what you need at this salary for Jordan Spieth to pay off his salary this week for fantasy. So it's hard for me to say, but I think he's kind of a fade this week. I actually like him more next week to Byron Nelson, but I'll leave that for next week. Why I like him more there, but he's kind of setting up as a fade for me at that price. So definitely wouldn't fault someone if they wanted to use him in some GPP lineups. He obviously has the ability to win, but he really needs a huge performance to pay off his fantasy salary here on DraftKings. So right underneath him is Zach Johnson, and I kind of have the same feeling about Zach Johnson as I do about Jordan Spieth this week. Zach has a great history of this event, won it twice, I believe. I believe he's made the cut here every time he's played. I think he has like one finish outside the top 10 in like 9 tries. So He's a great play. The problem with Zach is he's 12,000 this week. He's the second highest fantasy golfer this week. That's not great. I don't doubt that Zach Johnson is going to get at least the top 20 here. He probably is. He's been playing solidly enough for me to think so. He's got the right type of game for Colonial, obviously, but man, that is a big salary for Zach Johnson. And, I'm definitely going to use some of him in GPPs. He's a very solid play, and you can still make good lineups with him, but that's a big salary for him to pay off. So something to keep in mind. I wouldn't go overboard with him just because, there's only a certain amount of value plays you want to be using. But he is a good play. It's just, again, the salary is really big on Zach Johnson this week. There's some good value plays that you can pair with him. I'm personally going to kind of be limiting my exposure a bit just because I think you can create better lineups by sort of leaving Spieth and Johnson out of it. That being said, super solid history here. So you got to keep that in mind as well. So, Jimmy Walker, not a great history of this course, hasn't played it a ton. I'm not going to be using a ton of Jimmy Walker. Probably have a few GPPs with him. Obviously didn't play very well at the Players, so, not sure what's going on with his game. I kind of expect him to rebound, but, it's tough to say. He's really a GPP play for me. Don't love him this week just because of his salary, but at the same time, he's such a solid player that I can't fault someone who'd want to use him in a lot of lineups. So I'm keeping Jimmy Walker to GPPs just because of salary. So Kevin Na for me is where things kind of get more interesting. Na's actually been a better player than Zach Johnson over the past 6 weeks. Actually, he's almost been a better player than Jimmy Walker too. I guess Walker has the win, but Na's worst finish over his last 6 tournaments is 20th, and that's crazy. He's got 2 6th-place finishes. I believe 2 more top 10s. So he's got like 4 top 10s in his last 6 events. He's playing fantastic golf, and this course really sets up well for him. I believe he's played it 8 times, made the cut here 7 times. It has at least 2 or 3 top 10s here as well. So, Kevin Na ranks highly in a lot of statistical categories I looked at this week. I really like him this week, and I think a lot of people might say, well, Kevin Na, 9,900. There's no way I'm paying up for that, but I would much rather pay 9,900 for Kevin Na this week than I would pay 12,000 for Zach Johnson. And, I think Kevin Na is playing better than Zach Johnson so far. And I think there's a good chance he could really outperform him a lot this week. And when you look at their salaries, there's such a big difference that, I really like Na at that price. I'm going to be using him quite a bit. And he's one of my favorite plays. I think the course sets up well. I think he's playing better than a lot of people on tour right now, And I just think it sets up well for him. So he's definitely a play I'm keying on this week. Ryan Palmer is actually, should be noted that he's a member of this course. So tons of experience, really nice record here. Hasn't done much in the past couple of weeks, but he's just a very solid player. I think he's a solid cash game play. I think just a solid all-around play. I expect him to make the cut here. I don't know exactly what shape his game is in. He hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, but at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if he turned it on here. So Ryan Palmer is someone to keep in mind. Adam Scott, I'm not sure what's going on with his game right now. Definitely just limiting him to GPPs this week. I would probably just stay away. He's probably going to turn it around at some point. He could turn around here, but I would just take a wait and see his approach with Adam Scott. Obviously still great tee to green, but for his price, he's not as cheap as he was last week. If it was 8,600, I would probably be advocating for him a bit more, but at 9,400, I can pass on him. Charlie Hoffman, a decent iron player, not a great record here, but again, someone with a lot of experience. Wouldn't be shocked to see him do well this week. Paul Casey has some really nice stats to go along with this course. It's tough this week because Casey's not the most accurate player, but at the same time, like I said, the big hitters can do well here too as well. So Casey's someone with a little bit of course history here. I believe he's got a top 10. Some nice statistical numbers for Casey as well. I'm definitely going to be using him in some GPPs just because I feel like Casey is bound to win at some point this year. And, he does have like really good par 4 scoring numbers, some decent proximity to the hole numbers as well. So he fits the course in a lot of ways. And I just think that, there's better fits for Casey coming up in the future, I guess, is kind of my point. I do think he's worth, a GPP shot or two this week at that price. Not super expensive, so still someone you can fit some lineups in. Patrick Reed, always kind of in play, but hasn't been super on lately. Makes a lot of cuts still. Maybe more of a cash game play, but someone I'm not going to be using a ton of this week. Doesn't have a ton of history at Colonial as well, something to keep in mind. Again, experience such a large factor. Ian Poulter's another player who should really fit this course well. Doesn't have, I think he's played here 3 times, but again, just drives it really accurate, really good proximity on his approach shots, just really good stats all around this year. Tough to say, he doesn't have a ton of experience on this course either. So, but a solid play. I do like other players at this price range, I think, over Ian Poulter. I think that's what I'd say about Ian Poulter. Not my favorite play, but someone I'll definitely use in some GPP lineups, and pretty much goes the same for Paul Casey. So moving down here a little bit, 2 guys I do really like this week, Brendon Todd and Chris Kirk. Both of these players fit this course extraordinarily well. They both, are accurate drivers of the golf ball. Todd, especially this year, has been great with his driving accuracy and proximity. Both great short games, and both great putters when they're on as well. So I really like both of these players this week. I think I like Todd a little bit more. He's just been the more consistent player this year, and quite frankly, his stats show it. He's top 30, I think, in strokes gained tee to green, very highly ranked in par 4 scoring as well. So, just an all-around really consistent fantasy play right now, Brendon Todd. He's going to be the backbone of a lot of cash game lineups for me. He finished 5th here last year. He's played this course twice already, so already showing good return on this course after only playing it twice. He's a great fit, great play this week. And Chris Kirk, coming off a huge finish at the Players, generally a really consistent player, sort of started the season slowly, but when he's on, he really tends to play well these tighter par 70 type courses as well. Has a really good record at Hilton Head and at Wahali, the home of the Sony Open as well. So, and he's got a great record at Colonial too. He's played it 4 times, made the cut all 4 times. I believe he has a couple, I believe he's got like 3 top 15 finishes here actually. So really nice record here, and coming off a strong performance. So Chris Kirk, someone not to forget about. I think some gamers might sort of forget about him because he did have a weak start to the season and he's priced a little bit more expensive now, but he's a really consistent golfer when he's on, Chris Kirk. So I'm going to have some exposure to him for sure. Going down a bit, Steve Stricker and Ben Martin at 8,500, 2 other players I really like. Stricker's a past winner of this event, played well at the Players, obviously missed a cut at the Zurich a few weeks ago, but generally the most consistent player on tour. Yeah, he's just kind of getting back into it. Was off sort of the whole first part of the season, but this is kind of a buy low opportunity on Steve Stricker. When he's on, he'll be priced, up generally in the 10,000s in a week like this. So, maybe he's a bit more of a GPP play just because he hasn't proven himself yet that he's back to full strength. But, this is a good buy low opportunity on him this week. Course really suits him. And the same can kind of be said for Ben Martin. I think he's priced a little bit too cheap this week, actually. This course suits him quite well. 21st here last year on his first visit to Colonial. That's very strong. Generally plays these types of courses very well, and coming off a 4th place finish at the Players. So in really good form. I really like Ben Martin this week. I think that's a great price for Ben Martin at 8,500. Great sort of all around cash game play, GPP play. I like him. I'll have a lot of exposure to Ben Martin. Going down the list here a little bit, I would fade Patrick Rogers this week. First time playing the course, and he's a bit more of a sort of a youthful bomber of the golf ball. So really good young player, but I'll take my chances on him at another event. Just priced too high for me for someone playing the course their first time. Okay, so Sean OHair is another interesting player to me. OHair's been in really good form lately. You can see here, we'll bring up his game log. So his past 3 events, 20th cut, 12th, 6th, and he actually has a 2nd, I believe. So not that long ago either. So OHair is just having a really good season. He may not seem like he fits this course very well because his driving accuracy numbers aren't that great. He's not that highly ranked in proximity, I believe, but he played extremely well at RBC Hilton Head, a course that's very similar to this, and he also played well at the Valspar, another course that has tighter tree-lined fairways. So I really like Sean O'Hair this week for the GPP play. I think a lot of people might just sort of be off him this week as they sort of target the more sort of accurate players. But O'Hair's had a lot of success at courses like this, and he's got a lot of experience playing Colonial. He's a Texas native, probably very familiar with the course, and he's in really good form. I think O'Hair is someone who could kind of just sort of jump up and take this tournament. Quite frankly, it's a very even field. There's not a ton of top end talent, and I'm kind of looking for someone like Sean O'Hair to win this week. I think he's a great speculative GPP play. Maybe not a cash game play, but definitely someone I'm gonna have exposure to. I really like the sort of course correlation, the fact he's done well in other similar courses, and the fact that he's got a lot of experience playing here. So I like Sean O'Hair a lot this week. Someone to keep in mind. Russell Knox has great numbers for this course as well. That's another player. Makes a lot of cuts. I believe he's made like his last 5 cuts now. Playing very consistent. Hasn't had a top finish for a while, but again, for a cash game play, can do a lot worse than Russell Knox. He's a very consistent player right now. A lot of good stats for this course too. Very accurate iron player. So liking Russell Knox this week. John Senden's had some success here as well. Someone to keep in mind. He's a bit of a spotty player. Can go through rough stretches, but played very well at the Players and played well at match play too. So another player, I'll definitely have some exposure to in GPPs because he can put up a top 10 or a top 5 any week, especially on a course like this where he's got experience. So I like John Senden this week. Definitely at that price. I like all 3 of those players, O'Hair, Knox, and Senden at those price. So keep in mind. We have Jason Kokrak. I should mention Kokrak actually has played this course pretty well. I believe he's got a top 20 here, and he does have a top 20 at RBC Hilton Head as well, sort of a course correlation connection there. So I know he played poorly last week, but I wouldn't be shocked if he put up like a top 15, a top 20. He's still a solid player. So something to keep in mind. Not going to have a ton of exposure to him, but something to keep in mind. A couple other, there's a lot of solid players in this field, and that's kind of what I mean by parity. So Pat Perez and Jim Herman, 2 players who kind of been just playing super solid lately. I believe Perez has made his last 5 cuts, played super well at the Players, top 20. I believe he was top 25 last week, had a nice final round. He's an accurate driver of the golf ball too. This course really should suit Pat Perez in a lot of ways. So he's played here lots. He'll know the course. Just another solid play at 8,000, I think. And Jim Herman, this will be the first time playing the course. He ranks very highly in proximity to hole, though. And he's a very good iron player. Been playing very well on tour this year. Definitely sort of a shot in the dark, but at 8,000, I don't love the price tag, but just someone I thought I'd mention as being kind of an interesting play this week. We have Robert Streb, who played very well last week. Someone else to keep in mind. Definitely wouldn't put anyone off using him a little bit. I'd probably just keep him to GPPs, but I guess another solid player at that price. So moving down, the quality drops off a little bit here once you dip under 8,000. Boo Weekley's got a great, I kind of already mentioned Boo Weekley, but he's got a great record at this course. Won it here, very accurate iron player. He's been playing well lately too. He's got like a 3rd place finish, I believe, it was a few weeks ago. Played very solidly last week. When he's in form, he can win at a course like this. So Boo Weekley at 7,700. I really like him as a GPP play. Boo Weekley. George McNeil's been playing solid. If I needed a cash game play for someone in that range, I'd probably lean George McNeil. Probably lean Boo Weekley as for GPPs, but both players have been playing very solidly lately, McNeil and Weekley, and both have good histories at this event as well. So 2 other players to keep in mind in that price range. Geoff Ogilvy actually stringing together some solid results, and again, just another player with a nice history at this event. And that is really what I am looking for this week. I want players with history playing at Colonial. It's really important this week. Geoff Ogilvy, definitely going to be on my radar a little bit at this price range. If I have to go up to 7,400 or around there, someone I'll consider for sure. Jason Bohn, really good stats on Jason Bohn. Really good, I believe he's ranked 6th in proximity to the hole. Very accurate driver of the golf ball. He sets up really well. 9th last week, so obviously in some decent form. He's had a pretty consistent year. He does tend to miss a cut here and there, Jason Bohn, But he's still someone I will definitely be using in my GPPs and maybe even a cash game lineup or two. I really like the way this course sets up for him. He's just another player who's played here lots. I believe he's played here 6 or 7 times at least. Landed a couple top 20s, I believe. So I like Jason Bohn. I like the fact he's in pretty decent form, and I like the fact he's played here lots, and I like the fact he's an accurate driver of the golf ball. So that's the type of player I'm looking at. I like his price a lot. Definitely someone I'm going to be using a bit. Moving down here, don't like a lot of those players, but I do like David Toms, former winner of this event. Actually finished 5th here last year as well. David Toms he's approaching 50, but he's still getting it done. He's 13th at the Players a few weeks ago, another course he's played well at, and he's just an accurate driver of the golf ball. He's he's ranks highly in proximity to the hole right now, ranks highly in driving accuracy, and he's got decent stats on par 4 scoring for the year as well. So he really fits this course. He's just another player that fits the profile I'm looking at. A lot of experience playing here, and just good form recently. So I really like David Toms as a cash game play this week. I think he's going to have a solid week. Seems to be kind of chasing that sort of elusive last win on tour before he retires. And this is the type of course I'd expect David Toms to do well on. So definitely one of my favorite cash games play at that cheap price. I like his price a lot. Kevin Chappell, really good iron player when he's on. The problem is he's very streaky. He has not had a good year, but he played well last week. And he's played well this course in the past. So I would limit him to GPPs most definitely, but definitely a speculative play. If you want to go off Toms, who might be higher owned, or if you want to go off Bohn, and you're looking for kind of like a lower owned play, keep Kevin Chappell in mind because he's played this course well before. And when he's on, he's a very good player. So, someone who could definitely land you top 10. So in this price range, definitely don't mind throwing him in a GPP lineup at all, Kevin Chappell. William McGirt, definitely a solid player, makes a lot of cuts. I think he sets up well for this course too. Pretty accurate hitter, pretty accurate ball striker. Played this course 3 or 4 times. I believe he's made the cut like 3 out of 4 times or something. So again, experience playing here. Pretty decent recent form. Played well last week. So, at that price, I just like the solidness and the consistency that he brings. That's about all I have to say. He's very similar to Toms in that regard. I'd probably lean Toms over McGirt if I had to choose, just because Toms has played this course so well in the past. But another solid play at this price range. So moving down here a little bit, Michael Thompson has played well here in the past. Definitely just a strictly GPP play though. And once we move under 7,000, the main sort of value play to me is John Peterson. Peterson sort of grew up playing Colonial. He's from Texas, and he's just been so solid this year on tour. You can just see from his last 4 events. I believe he's made like his last 8 cuts in a row now. 3 top 20s in his last 4 starts. He's played this event once before and actually shot a 64 in the opening round. So he knows this course extremely well. Got great ball striking statistics. I believe he ranks top 25 in strokes gained tee to green and in par 4 scoring. So this course just sets up super well for him too. He's just a good ball striker, not going to be bothered by the smaller greens and fairways. And at 6,900, just the consistency that he brings, he's like a must-play cash game play for me. Going to be in a lot of lineups. I expect he'll be high owned, but for cash game play, he just offers a sort of a level of consistency no one else does once you go under 7,000. So big play for me this week, John Peterson. Chris Stroud has played very well at this event. I believe he has 3 top 20s in 3 visits. So again, someone else who relies on accuracy and sort of like a strong game around the greens. So Chris Stroud, someone to keep in mind, sort of maybe as like a GPP move off of John Peterson. Obviously going to lean Peterson in cash games, but I definitely consider Stroud for a GPP or tournament pick. Just a really nice history of this event. He's been picking up his play a little bit. Started off very poorly, but has made some cuts here in the past month or two. So Stroud definitely, someone to keep in mind once you venture under 7,000 here on DraftKings. Pelt, just another player, great history here. Veteran player. He's made his last 10 cuts at Colonial. So the last 10 years he's played here, made the cut every time. At 6,600, that's just super, super great consistency that, you can't find everywhere. And he's been playing solidly recently. I believe he's made like his last 3 or 4 cuts on tour. Finished 9th at RBC Hilton Head, which is a great indicator. Yeah, definitely Bohn Pelt. I'd probably even consider him for cash games this week. Just really consistent. Jerry Kelly, definitely the type of player that fits this course. Doesn't have a great history at Colonial, but he's played here lots, and he's in good form. He played super well with the players. So, if you want to make a stars and scrub lineup, Jerry Kelly, Bohn Pelt, and John Hugh and Fredrik Jakobsen. Sorry, a couple other players that fit the profile for that type of lineup. Jakobsen's got a great history here. Hugh has generally played these courses, these sort of target golf courses, extremely well. Jakobsen, very, very consistent for cut making, probably lean Jakobsen and cash games, and Hugh for GPPs only. But, Bohn Pelt, Jerry Kelly, Fredrik Jakobsen, John Hugh, 4 players, really good value picks for some stars and scrub lineups if you want to get in a lot of top-end talent. Excuse me. So moving down, there is one other player that I'm just going to mention. Bryce Molder. I think he really fits this course well as well. He's played here 4 times, finished 5th one year, and he's played pretty consistently. You can see he's got a 15th there at RBC Heritage a few weeks ago, made his last 3 cuts. And he's just another type of player that plays, typically plays these sort of more mature courses, these par 70 tighter courses where distance isn't as big a factor. He plays them well. He's a really good putter. He's ranked 5th in strokes gained putting on tour right now, and he's just really solid for 6,000. I'm definitely going to use him in some lineups, some GPP lineups. Makes more cuts than he misses. That's the type of player you want for this price. He's a great value for me at 6,000. Won't be considering too many other players around this price range. Ben Crane has a nice record here, but he's really inconsistent. You never know what he's going to do. So I definitely lead Molder if I went down in this price range. Probably wouldn't go down any further than that. Don't like the fits of any of these other players. So yeah, I would sort of stop once you get to Bryce Molder this week. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the lineup there on DraftKings this week. There's a lot of good value plays. You have John Peterson there at 6,900, but you also have all those other guys, between 6,800 and 6,000. Bohn Pelt, Fredrik Jakobsen's a great cash game play, makes a lot of cuts. You had Jerry Kelly there, I think is a good GPP play, and you have Bryce Molder at 6,000, who I think is a good just all-around play just because of how cheap he is. So lots of good value plays, lots of guys in the 7,000 range too you can use. Jason Bohn, David Toms, Kevin Chappell's a great GPP play, I think, this week. William McGirt, another sort of consistent player. So lots of good value plays. It does sort of lend itself to, venturing up into the Zach Johnsons and the Jordan Spieth. I do think you can make some good lineups with those two. I just think that the better opportunities there is to sort of leave those two out of it just because they're so expensive. Obviously, I'm going to have some GPP lineups with them in it. That all being said, but I'll probably make most of my lineups without them, just because of the price. Obviously Zach Johnson has a great history at this event, and obviously Jordan Spieth is just a great player and could blow the field away. But I just think for price you can create better lineups without them this week. So that's sort of my feeling on it, and that's pretty much it for this week too. It should be a good event. Like I said, should be a really tight leaderboard. I'm expecting it to be anyways. Make sure you check out all the GPPs there and tournaments that are being offered on DraftKings. They're still running satellites to the Millionaire Maker to the US Open, which is coming up in about a month. Still a lot of ways you can enter the World Golf Live finales there down in September in Boston at the TBC Deutsche Bank. That's where it's being hosted, the live World Golf Championship finals on DraftKings. So, qualifiers for that are running. Don't forget to check those out. Tons of great golf action. And don't forget to check out the forums on RotoCurve too. It's feel free to post a question. You can also post a question to me on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind, but feel free to post some questions in the threads there. It's a good way to get discussion going. I like it when people post questions because it gives me things to think about too, and usually people end up giving me ideas. So make sure you check out RotoCurve. We're always looking to decrease players' learning curves and new players' learning curves. That's what the forum and the site is all about. So keep checking that out, and definitely check back next week. We'll be back next week for the Byron Nelson. Should be an interesting event, and stay cool, everybody. Have a good week. I'll talk to you later.